They say in this line of work, loyalty is worth more than money. More than your gun, more than your hideout, more than the stolen cash stacked under the floorboards. But me, I learned the hard way that loyalty's just another illusion people sell you, right before they stick the knife in your back. The night it happened, I was sitting in a diner off 14th Street, the kind of place where the waitress doesn't ask questions and the neon light buzzes like it's about to die. Coffee tasted like burnt tar, pancakes hard as bricks, but I liked it. A place where you could think. A place where nobody cared if you walked in with blood on your shirt. I was supposed to be celebrating. A clean getaway. The heist had gone down smoother than expected. No alarms, no cops, not even a nosy night guard sticking his flashlight where it didn't belong. $500,000 in unmarked bills, split between me and Vinny. My so-called brother. Not blood, but thicker than blood, or so I thought. We'd grown up together on the same cracked sidewalks, sharing smokes behind liquor stores, fighting punks who thought they could mess with us. Vinny was the guy I trusted with my life. The one I pulled out of a burning car when he was too drunk to even find the door handle. The one I split every job with, 50-50, no questions asked. So when the cops swarmed my apartment that morning, shouting my name like they already had it written in their notebooks, I knew something was rotten. Cops don't just magically show up 10 minutes after you stash the cash. Someone had tipped them off. And when they dragged me out in cuffs, slamming my head against the squad car, I caught the glimpse I'll never forget. Vinny, standing at the corner, cigarette dangling from his lips, pretending like he wasn't watching. Our eyes met for half a second, and he looked away. But that was enough. That coward didn't need to say a word. I knew. I don't know if you've ever felt betrayal hit you square in the gut. It's like the world tilts, like every memory you had with that person flips upside down. I remembered Vinny swearing on his mother's grave that he'd never cross me. I remembered him crying in the back of that stolen Buick when I saved him from getting whacked by Russo's crew. And now, all I saw was a rat in human skin, selling me out for a pat on the head from the cops. The cops thought they had me cold. But here's the thing about me, I don't go down easy. I kept my mouth shut, didn't give them a word. They wanted names, they wanted details, they wanted me to confirm what Vinny had already spoon-fed them. I just stared at the table, smirked when they threatened me, laughed when they said they'd make me disappear. You can't disappear a ghost, boys. And I'd been a ghost since I was 15. By some miracle, or maybe because the evidence was thinner than they hoped, they had to let me walk. Not free, no. I could feel the eyes on me, the unmarked cars parked across from my building, the little red dot of a camera lens hidden in the shadows. They wanted me to lead them to the stash, to prove Vinny hadn't just fed them stories. But I wasn't thinking about the cash. Not yet. I was thinking about blood. See, in our world, you don't forgive rats. You don't forget. You don't shrug it off like some 9-to-5 betrayal at the office. A ratting partner is worse than a bullet to the chest, because bullets you expect. Rats. They eat at your soul. So I hatched my plan. A gift. Something Vinny would never forget. Something that'd make him wish he'd never opened his mouth. I won't tell you all of it yet. Not here, not now. But I'll tell you this much. When Vinny opened the box I left on his doorstep, the whole street heard him scream. And that was just the beginning. When a man screams loud enough, the whole block listens. But when that scream comes from a guy like Vinny, it travels further, it seeps into alleys, rattles windows, and makes the city's rats twitch their whiskers. Because if a man like Vinny could scream like that, it meant something worse than bullets was waiting in the dark. I didn't stay to see him open the box. I didn't need to. I'd pictured the moment 100 times, his hands trembling, his lip curling, that fake tough guy act cracking the second he saw what was inside. My little reminder of the sackweed carried after our first job together. Blood-stained canvas, red stitching, a piece of butcher's refuse bundled with it just to play with his nerves. He'd know exactly what it meant. I remembered everything, and I wasn't finished. The Buick's heater was coughing its last breath when I pulled away from the curb. The city slid past in streaks of yellow streetlight, and my mind worked faster than the tires on wet asphalt. Russo's boys had been sniffing around since last year, ever since Vinny and I pulled that warehouse job. $500,000 in cash. Too clean. Too easy. Vinny swore no one saw us, swore the trail was cold. But I should have known then, Rats don't wait for crumbs, they look for the feast. And Vinny had always had a taste for cheese. Back in my apartment, I didn't touch the stash. That's what the cops wanted, to see me slip, to watch me crawl back to the cache and incriminate myself. Instead, I tore the place apart with my own hands. The floorboards where I'd hidden the money? Empty. I'd moved it days ago. The walls? Bugged. Tiny microphones tucked behind the radiator, near the sink, even under the damn table. Quinn's work. She was the one leading the task force, the one who knew I was too slippery for a straight collar. I unscrewed the bugs, one by one, and dropped them into a glass of whiskey. Watched them fizz and die. Then I lifted the glass, toasted the empty room, and drank around the devices, just to let her know I was listening back. Vinny thought he'd bought himself protection by feeding them my name. But he'd forgotten how cops work. They don't protect rats. They bleed them dry, then toss them to the wolves. Sooner or later, Vinny was going to realize his deal wasn't worth the paper it was written on. And I'd be waiting when that panic hit. The next morning, I made my rounds. Places Vinny and I used to haunt, back before Trust went bankrupt. Russo's bar on the south side, closed up, boarded windows, but I caught the smell of cigar smoke from the alley. His men were still using it as a nest. St. Agnes, the church we used to duck into when the heat was heavy, the candles still burned, though no one prayed there anymore. And Ma's place, that little walk-up with the cracked steps and the smell of cabbage that clung to your clothes for days. Vinny always went crawling back there when he was scared. I didn't knock. I still had a key. Inside, Ma was already at the stove, stirring a pot like she hadn't slept. Her eyes landed on me, and for a second I thought she'd spit in my face. But instead, she just sighed. "He's made a mess, Giovanni," she said. "That's his specialty. He came here crying. Said you'd kill him. Said the cops were circling. He wanted me to hide him. Did you?" Her silence was answer enough. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain just an inch. Sure enough, an unmarked sedan parked crooked on the curb, 2 suits pretending to read the paper. They weren't there for me. They were guarding her precious boy, the rat. I turned back to her. "You know what he did, Ma. You know he put the knife in my back." She stirred the pot harder, the spoon clinking. "He's my son. What do you want me to do? Throw him into the street? That's exactly where he belongs." She looked at me then, eyes wet but steady. "And you? Where do you belong, Giovanni? You boys were supposed to look out for each other. You made a family where there was none. And now, rats and ghosts, that's all I got left." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because in her words, I saw the truth I'd been dodging. Vinny and I had been brothers, once. Maybe closer than brothers. And maybe that's why it cut deeper than any knife when he sold me out. I left before she could say more. On the stairs, I pulled out my phone and typed a message to an old number, Russo's. Simple words, no signature. St. Agnes. Tonight. South door. Business unfinished. It wasn't just bait. It was a trap. Because I knew Vinny would get spooked, and when he got spooked, he'd run to the same places he always did. And if Russo got the message, all the better. Let the devil and the rat walk into God's house together. That night, I sat in the back pew of St. Agnes, smoke curling from the cigarette between my fingers, candlelight flickering against the cracked plaster walls. I waited. And when the door creaked open, footsteps echoing, I knew the show was about to start. Only, I hadn't planned on the third act. Because the second I saw Vinny's pale face slip into the shadows, I also caught the glint of another figure in the doorway. A figure with a badge. Detective Quinn. And just like that, the game got complicated. I didn't stick around to watch the sirens arrive. I was parked a block over in a borrowed Buick, heater coughing, windshield fogged just enough to make the world look like a bad memory. The scream rolled down the row houses like a bottle kicked along a gutter. Hit, rattle, stop. Porch lights flipped on. Dogs started their sermons. Someone yelled, "Call the cops," like the cops weren't already parked 2 streets back waiting to pretend they weren't watching. I pictured Vinny's hands shaking over the box, the pretty butcher's twine, the note written in the tidy block letters he knew from a life we never talk about. All those years he'd laughed about my neat handwriting. "You write like a schoolteacher, Johnny," and now that was the part that made him drop his cigarette. Recognition. The kind that lands in your stomach like a stone. I slid lower in the seat and let the fog take the windshield. In the rear view, a pair of headlights crept, paused, crept again. Unmarked. The city's favorite color. Here's the thing about a message. It isn't what you send, it's what it costs them to receive. I didn't need gore. I needed memory. A strip of canvas cut from the sack we used on our first score, the corner patched by my grandmother with a red thread I never let Vinny forget. And, okay, a little stage dressing from the butcher on 9th who doesn't ask questions if you overpay in cash. The box wasn't proof of anything. It was an echo. It was me, in his head, reminding him there's only one door out of the kind of trouble he invited. The Buick door popped when the cold settled, the metal complaining softly. I cracked the window, pulled a drag off a menthol I didn't like, and watched the parade form outside Vinny's walk up. He came out hunched, bare arms, gym shorts, eyes hunting for me like a guy who finally realized there's always a second shooter. A uniform grabbed his elbow and moved him toward the stoop like the world was on rails. Behind them, Detective Quinn appeared, leather jacket, hair like a law textbook, the one who'd been trying to read me since the warehouse job 2 winters back. She looked up and down the street once, twice, then put her hand on the box like she was blessing a coffin. I left before she could look a third time. The Buick's engine coughed awake and I tucked it into the cold, the city sliding past in sodium orange. I didn't think about the money. The money is a symptom. You cure the disease first. If you're wondering how I knew what would make Vinny sing like a choir boy who forgot the words, I'll tell you a secret. Every partnership has a vault, and it's never the one with the cash. It's the stories. Years ago, before we were Vinny and Johnny, we were idiots under a blue tarp in a rainstorm, counting soaked 20s and laughing like kings. That's where the sack came from. He kept it for luck. I told him to burn it. He said it smelled like winning. That's the scent I bottled and mailed back to him with a ribbon. By the time the Buick coasted into the garage under Pike, my phone had lit up 3 times with the same unknown number. Cops. Or Vinny using a borrowed phone. Either way, not a conversation I wanted in a concrete tunnel. I shut it off and listened to the engine tick. The air tasted like old water and rust. I sat there until the cold slid into my bones, then took the side stairs up and out into a city pretending to sleep. Back at my place, I did what you do when you think your walls have ears. I turned on the radio, turned on the shower, turned on the blender. Noise, white as snow. Then I found the new family of strangers living under my kitchen table, the smallest microphone money can buy, wired into the light fixture, laughing at me with a grin. Cute. I unscrewed the bulb, plucked the thing out with gloved fingers, and dropped it into a jar of vinegar on the counter. "Quinn," I said to the empty room, "you're losing your touch." I didn't sleep. Sleep is a luxury item, like trust. I sat at the table with a map we never used because Vinny said, "We know the streets," and I drew circles around the past. Rousseau's bar. The locker at the bus depot. The alley behind St. Agnes where we used to smoke and confess to nothing. All the places a scared rat runs when the traps start snapping. Then I thought about the one place Vinny would go if he still believed he could fix this with charm and a lie. I got there at dawn, when even the birds keep their opinions to themselves. The building smelled like boiled cabbage and bleach, the hallway walls sweating old paint. I didn't knock. I had a key from a decade ago, from a time when mi casa meant something. Inside, the TV was already on to the morning news, volume low, a cartoon fox selling cereal to children who weren't awake. "Johnny," she said from the kitchen, like she'd been expecting me since 1999. "You look thin." "Hi, Ma." She poured coffee like it was a sacrament. She didn't ask where Vinny was. That told me more than questions would have. "They were here late," she said eventually, eyes on the window over the sink. "Your cop with the jacket and the stare. They took my boy to a hotel like he was a senator. Said it's safer." "Safer than what, Giovanni?" I watched the steam lift off the coffee. Then being the only guy in the neighborhood with a target on his back. "You put it there." He put it there. She didn't argue. She'd been alive long enough to know a truth when it tired the air. "You boys were supposed to look out for each other," she said, not blaming me, blaming God for making boys. We did. I pulled him out of fires he lit. This time he lit one under me. She slid a plate of toast across the table like a peace treaty. So what now? You gonna kill my son? I met her eyes. No, Ma. I'm gonna teach him how to live with himself. She nodded like that was worse, and maybe it was. On the TV, the anchor moved his mouth around words that didn't matter. A ticker at the bottom mentioned an ongoing investigation in a neighborhood I knew too well. Ma turned up the volume, then down again, then stared at her hands. He came at 3, she said softly. Smelled like cigarettes and fear. He said if you came by, tell you he's sorry. Is he? She took a long time to answer. He's sorry he's scared. I left her with the coffee and the fox and the prayers she kept folded in a drawer. In the hall, I texted a number no one should have and wrote a sentence that would do 2 jobs at once. Bait a rat, feed a cop. St. Agnes. 9 p.m. South Door. Come alone. Bring what you owe me. Then I borrowed a car from a guy who doesn't like me and spent the day being seen. I made sure 3 cameras caught me downtown. I let a street informant spot me at a deli and sell the location to whoever would pay. I walked past Quinn on Carlton like I didn't see her and watched her pretend not to see me. By sunset, half the city thought it knew where I'd be. St. Agnes is a brick box with a cross welded to the roof and a confession booth that could tell better stories than me. The south door sticks when it rains. It stuck that night. I shouldered it open and let the dark swallow me up to the ankles. Candles flickered up front. The air smelled like wax, old wood, and the things people lie about to priests. I sat in the second pew on the left, same as I did when I was 12 and pretending I was going to grow up good. My back to the aisle, my eyes on the center aisle's black ribbon headed toward the altar. I breathed. I counted to 20 and back. Outside, tires hissed on wet pavement. Footsteps. 1 set. He came light, like he could change the sound of his life by stepping softer. He sat 2 pews behind me and 2 over, the old geometry of guilt. We didn't turn. You got some nerve, Vinny said. You got some memory, I said. I didn't give him everything, he whispered, like that meant something. I thought I could. Johnny, they had pictures, they had phone taps. They promised. They promise everyone. Silence pressed down like a palm. Somewhere, a furnace coughed. I opened your box, he said finally. You sick. Just thorough. You gonna make me beg? Not my style. Outside, a door thumped. Not the south one. The west. I didn't move. Vinny didn't either, but I felt him stiffen the way a dog does at thunder. You led em here, he breathed. Funny, I said. I was about to ask you the same. We both turned then, too late to pretend we were statues. A shadow leaned in the archway. Not Quinn. Smaller. Meaner. Russo. I hadn't seen him since we knocked off his numbers run and left him a consolation prize in the form of a busted jaw. He smiled with a mouth that never healed right and tapped the pew with a ring that sounded like a coin dropped into a wishing well. Boys, he said, voice slick as the candle wax. It's prayer time. Vinny's breath came sharp. You brought him. I didn't bring anybody. Then how? Because, Russo said, amused, rats squeal in the same language, and you two been speaking it all week. He stepped into the light, and the church felt smaller by half. Behind him, I caught a sliver of movement, the glint of a badge at the door, the shape of a woman's silhouette, Quinn, holding the night at bay. Vinny whispered, Johnny. Yeah. What's the plan? I stood slowly, palms open, heart steady. Same as always, I said, turning to face the aisle, the cop, the gangster, the friend who wasn't anymore. Survive the first 10 seconds. Russo's ring tapped the wood again, like a clock starting. Quinn's shadow shifted. Somewhere, a siren wailed far away, a reminder that the world never stops for our little wars. 10 seconds. That's all you get in this life. After that, the story writes you. The first 10 seconds felt like 10 hours. Russo stepped closer, his limp still there from when I cracked his knee with a tire iron back in '08. Vinny's breathing got ragged behind me. He was shaking, but not from the cold. He knew what I knew. When Russo smiled, somebody wasn't leaving with their heartbeat intact. Quinn was still just a shadow in the archway, arms crossed like she had the whole scene under glass. Watching. Waiting. Not moving in, not pulling us out. She wanted blood to spill so she could scoop up the survivors. That's how she played it, always one step back, letting the wolves eat each other before firing a tranquilizer. Russo dragged a chair across the stone floor and sat down facing us, his ring tapping the wood in a rhythm that matched my pulse. "Funny thing about betrayal," he said. His jaw crackled when he spoke, voice wet and jagged. "It makes old enemies look like old friends." Vinny leaned forward, desperate. "Russo, listen." Russo held up a finger, slow and deliberate. Vinny shut his mouth. I'd seen that look before. Russo wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to settle his own score, and we were both on the ledger. "You boys took from me," Russo went on. "Money, pride, and I could have forgiven one. But both. No. That's the kind of insult that lives in your bones. I waited years for the right night, the right hour. Now look at this blessing. A rat and a ghost, sitting in God's house like lambs ready for slaughter." He pulled something from his coat. Not a gun. A blade. Long, old, and polished. The kind of knife you don't carry unless you mean to get close enough to smell the last breath. Vinny broke first. "Russo, I didn't. Johnny, he made me." "Don't," I said without turning. "Don't throw my name around now. You did what you did." Russo chuckled. "Look at that. Rat squeals, ghost scolds. This is better than Sunday Mass." I scanned the corners of the church. Candles guttered, light bouncing shadows on cracked plaster. Only 2 exits, south door where I came in, west door behind Russo. Quinn was at that west door, still lurking. She wasn't interfering, which meant she wanted me desperate enough to give her what Vinny couldn't. Russo rose from the chair, knife catching candlelight. "Any last prayers?" "Yeah," I said. "Don't miss." I moved first. 10 seconds. Always 10. I kicked the pew sideways, wood shrieking across the stone floor, and Vinny yelped like a beaten dog. Russo lunged, knife carving the air where I'd been. I rolled low, my shoulder smashing into the aisle. Pain flared, but pain's a luxury. You feel it later if you live. Vinny bolted the other way, shoes slapping the floor. Russo turned after him, distracted just enough. I surged up, grabbed the candle stand, and swung it like a bat. Iron met bone. Russo staggered, the knife clattering across the floor. His laugh came out wet, like he enjoyed it. "Still got fire, Johnny." "More than fire," I said. But before I could press, Quinn's voice cut the air. "Enough." She stepped into the nave, badge flashing, pistol raised. "Hands where I can see them." "Now." Vinny froze mid-stride, hands up high, sweat dripping down his temples. Russo wiped blood from his mouth and smirked, showing his hands slow, like he was humoring a child. I didn't move. I kept the candle stand in my grip, knuckles white. Quinn's eyes locked on me. Not Vinny, not Russo. "Me. You don't want this to end in a morgue, Johnny," she said. "Drop it." I smiled, small and sharp. "Funny, Quinn. I thought that's exactly what you wanted." The tension stretched until the whole church seemed to hold its breath. Outside, a siren Dopplered past. Inside, you could hear wax drip. Russo broke the silence, laughing low. "What's the game here, detective? You want the rat, the ghost, or the devil?" Quinn didn't flinch. "I'll take all 3. Vinny whimpered. "Please, Johnny, please tell her." "Shut up," I snapped. This was the moment. The kind where you choose what kind of story you're writing. Walk out in cuffs, or walk out covered in blood. Both roads ended dark, but one gave me control. I dropped the candle stand. The clang echoed like a bell. Quinn's shoulders eased a fraction. "Good choice," she said. Russo tilted his head, eyes glittering. "Always the good soldier, huh, Johnny?" That's when it hit me. The smile. The calm. Russo wasn't afraid of Quinn's gun. He wasn't afraid of cuffs. He knew something I didn't. The west door creaked open wider. Heavy boots. 2 more men stepped in, dressed in street clothes but moving like shadows. Rousseau's men. Quinn whipped her gun toward them, but she was outnumbered before she blinked. Rousseau grinned wide. Looks like church is in session after all. Vinny backed into a corner, trembling. I stood still, mind racing. 4 against 1, with a detective caught in the middle and a rat praying in the corner. Not good odds. But odds never mattered to me. What mattered was the clock. 10 seconds. Always 10. And the next 10 were about to change everything. The church was a tomb waiting for its bodies. Rousseau's knife-wielding grin. Quinn's pistol steady but her eyes darting between shadows. 2 of Rousseau's muscle sliding into the pews like wolves circling meat. And Vinny, pressed against the wall, mouthing prayers he hadn't said since he was 10. I've lived my life by one rule: if you can't win the fight, make sure nobody else does either. 10 seconds, that's all I had before blood hit the altar. Rousseau lifted his hands like a preacher. "Detective Quinn," he crooned, his jaw cracking on her name, "you point that gun at me, but we both know you want him." He jabbed his chin at me. "Johnny Ghost. Your white whale. You been circling him for years." Quinn's jaw tightened, but her pistol didn't waver. "Funny. I don't recall giving you speaking privileges." I cut in before Rousseau could spin his web tighter. "She doesn't need me cuffed, Rousseau. She needs me bleeding. Makes the paperwork cleaner." Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp as a blade. For the first time that night, I saw the crack in her armor. I'd hit too close. Rousseau laughed, wet and broken. "See? The ghost knows. He always knew. She doesn't save men like us, Johnny. She buries us." The air was thick with it, fear, rage, and something older than both. I shifted 1 step left, angling myself between Quinn and Rousseau's men. If I could keep them from flanking, maybe she'd hold fire long enough to realize I wasn't her enemy. "Not tonight." Vinny squealed. "We can work something out." "Shut up, Vinny!" we barked in unison, me, Rousseau, even Quinn. The rat went silent, sliding down the wall like a puppet with cut strings. Rousseau signaled with 2 fingers. His men spread wider, boots echoing on stone. Quinn tracked one with her pistol, but that left the other free. 10 seconds. So I made a choice. I moved. I lunged toward the nearest thug, shoulder slamming into his gut, both of us crashing into a pew. Wood split, candles toppled, wax spilling across the floor. Quinn shouted something, gunfire cracked, stone chips flew from the wall. The church became chaos incarnate. Rousseau's laugh was drowned out by the grunt of fists and the scrape of boots. I drove my elbow into the thug's jaw, felt teeth give, then rolled as a second shot ricocheted off the pulpit. Quinn had fired, not at me, not at Rousseau, but at the other man charging her. He spun, blood spraying, and collapsed like a sack of laundry. 1 down. Rousseau snarled, scooping his knife off the floor, lunging toward me. I barely caught his wrist, the blade an inch from my throat, breath sour with old whiskey. He pressed hard, strength in every tendon. My arms shook, vision blurring. Then, Vinny. For once in his miserable life, he acted. He swung a fallen candle stand, metal clanging against Rousseau's shoulder. Not enough to drop him, but enough to break his rhythm. I twisted, wrenched the knife free, and flung it across the room. It stuck in the wall near Quinn's head. Rousseau staggered back, clutching his arm, eyes burning. "You're dead men," he hissed. "Yeah," I spat, chest heaving. "But not tonight." The last thug grabbed Vinny, hauling him upright, pressing a pistol to his temple. "Nobody move," he barked, voice shaking. Quinn swung her aim, but froze. Vinny whimpered, legs kicking uselessly. Rousseau grinned bloody. "Looks like the rat finally earns his keep." I straightened, hands spread, mind racing. "Rousseau, you kill him, you lose leverage. You keep him breathing, maybe we all walk out with something." Rousseau narrowed his eyes. "What's your offer, Ghost?" "Simple. You let us walk. Me, Quinn, even the rat. And I give you back what I took from you." Quinn shot me a glare like daggers, but I ignored it. Rousseau tilted his head, suspicious. "You're bluffing."
Am I?
Check the locker at Union Station. Number 314. Combinations taped under the shelf. Your money. Plus interest. He hesitated. That was my opening. The truth. Locker 314 was empty but wired. A little surprise I'd left months back, just in case I ever needed to mislead a predator. Russo chewed his split lip, then nodded once. All right. You walk. But the rat stays. Vinny shrieked.
No.
Johnny, please. You can't. I stepped closer, met Russo's stare. No deal. He comes, or nobody leaves. For a heartbeat, the world balanced on a blade. Then Quinn made the decision for us. She fired once, clean and fast. The thug's head snapped back, Vinny collapsing free with a scream. Blood sprayed across the pews. 2 down. Russo roared, charging Quinn like a bull. I moved on instinct. 10 seconds. Always 10. I grabbed Vinny by the collar, yanked him toward the south door. Quinn and Russo crashed into the pulpit, her gun skidding across the stone. She shouted, he swung, fists like hammers. We bolted through the south door, cold night air slamming my lungs. Vinny stumbled beside me, babbling nonsense. Behind us, the church echoed with a fight, grunts, crashes, curses. I didn't look back. Not yet. We ran 2 blocks before Vinny collapsed against a wall, gasping. Johnny, what now? I leaned against the bricks, lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The flame steadied me more than the smoke.
Now,
I said, exhaling into the night. Now we finish what we started. Vinny's eyes widened. You mean Russo? I looked at him, long and cold. No, Vinny. I mean you. The cigarette burned bright between us. He finally understood. And that's when the sirens turned the corner, bathing us both in red and blue. The red-blue glow painted Vinny's face like a confession. He froze, mouth open, eyes darting between me and the flashing cruisers barreling down the street. Sirens screamed closer, echoing off the brick. For once, I didn't move. I just smoked and let him sweat. Johnny, he stammered, tugging my sleeve. We gotta go, we gotta run. I exhaled slow, smoke curling into the winter air. Run where, Vin? You think there's anywhere left that doesn't smell you coming? The cruisers screeched to a halt at the corner. Doors slammed. Boots hit pavement in rhythm. Shadows with guns drawn fanned out across the street. I could make out Quinn's voice barking orders, sharp, steady, like she hadn't just been brawling with Russo inside a church. Hands where I can see them. Both of you. Vinny bolted before I could answer, breaking right into an alley like a rabbit. 3 cops chased, shouting. I stayed put, leaning against the wall, cigarette between my fingers. I raised my free hand slow, the other hanging lazy by my side. Quinn approached first, eyes hard, hair wild from the fight. She still had blood on her jacket. Russo's, hers, I couldn't tell. Gun trained on me. You didn't run, she said, almost surprised. Not my style, I muttered. Where's Russo? Last I saw, he was redecorating St. Agnes with his fists. Her jaw tightened. She flicked a glance down the alley where Vinny disappeared, then back to me. And the rat? I smirked. You just answered your own question. She waved the uniforms off. Stand down. I'll handle him. They hesitated but obeyed, melting back toward the cruisers. Quinn holstered her weapon but didn't relax. You know what happens now, she said.
Do I?
You're done, Johnny. This city's tired of your ghost act. We've got enough bodies in your wake to fill a cemetery. You're out of time. I dropped the cigarette, crushed it under my heel. Funny. Russo said the same thing tonight. Difference is, he bleeds easier than you. Her eyes flickered, just a moment, then steadied again. Why didn't you take your chance? You could have killed him in there. You could have killed me. Instead, you ran with him. Because I wanted him to feel it, I said, my voice low. Every second. Every step. A bullet's too quick for a rat. He deserves to drown in his own fear. Quinn studied me like she was dissecting a puzzle. So where does that leave us? That depends, I said, leaning closer, on whether you want Rousseau's head or mine. Before she could answer, a gunshot cracked the night. Far off, maybe 3 blocks. Then another. The sound of a car peeling out. Quinn's radio squawked, "Officer down! Suspect fleeing northbound, black sedan, Rousseau confirmed armed." Quinn cursed, spun, shouted into her mic, and sprinted for her cruiser. She didn't spare me a second look. And just like that, I was invisible again. I didn't chase Rousseau. Not yet. Instead, I followed the trail Vinny left behind him like breadcrumbs. Rats don't vanish, they scurry. His scurry always led to one place, the docks. He thought they were safe, thought water washed sins clean. He wasn't wrong, but not the way he hoped. By the time I reached Pier 17, the fog had rolled in heavy, swallowing the warehouses. Cranes loomed like skeleton arms. The stink of oil and salt sat thick in the air. And there he was, Vinny, fumbling with a chain-locked gate, cursing under his breath. "Going somewhere," I called out. He froze, shoulders hunching. Slowly, he turned. His face was pale, eyes red. "Johnny, please. Don't." I stepped closer, boots echoing on the wood. "You had choices, Vin. You could have stayed quiet. You could have trusted me. Instead, you sold me for scraps." "They had me cornered," he shouted, voice cracking. "You don't know what it's like. Those rooms, the lights, the promises. They said you were going to cut me loose anyway." I believed em. I laughed, humorless. "You believed cops over me? After everything?" "I was scared," he sobbed. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to." "Yeah, you did." I stopped a few feet from him. "Every rat means it." He dropped to his knees, hands clasped like prayer. "Johnny, we're brothers, blood or not, we're brothers. You saved me once, you remember? That car fire. You pulled me out. Please, do it again. Save me." I crouched, eye level. His breath stank of cheap liquor and fear. "I did save you, Vin. Too many times. But this is the one fire you gotta burn in yourself." He wept, forehead pressed to the dock. My hand went to my coat pocket. I could have drawn steel, could have ended it clean. Instead, I pulled something else, the little velvet box. The one I'd left on his stoop days ago, the one he'd screamed over. I placed it on the wood in front of him. "Open it." His shaking fingers fumbled the lid. Inside, not flesh this time, not blood. Just a mirror shard. Small, jagged, enough to see his own broken reflection. "That's your gift," I said. "Live with it. Every day. Look at yourself and remember what you are." He stared at it, tears dripping onto the glass. "Johnny." I stood, turned, walked away. His sobs followed me, carried by the fog. Back uptown, the city was buzzing. Word on the street, Rousseau had vanished, leaving 2 cops bleeding in an alley. Quinn was on a warpath, dragging every snitch and hustler into interrogation rooms.
And me.
I was back in the diner on 14th, same burnt coffee, same neon buzz. Only this time, the booth across from me wasn't empty. Quinn slid in, her jacket still stained, her eyes darker than the coffee. "You knew he'd run to the docks," she said. I sipped, shrugged. "Rats love water. You let him live. Depends how you define living." She studied me, quiet for a long stretch. Finally, she leaned in. "Rousseau's out there. And now it's not just about the streets. 2 uniforms are dead. The brass want blood. They want yours. But I think you want his." I smirked. "What makes you think we're on the same side?" "Because," she said, voice flat, "you didn't kill me when you had the chance. And I didn't cuff you tonight." We sat in silence, neon painting her badge blue, my hands steady around the cup. For the first time, I wondered if the ghost and the cop were about to hunt the devil together. But one thing I knew for sure, the next 10 seconds would write the end of this story. The diner smelled of burnt grease and desperation. Quinn sat across from me, badge tucked under her jacket, eyes steady but hollow. The kind of look you see in mirrors after too many nights and too many ghosts. "Rousseau's making moves," she said. My people say he's holed up with half a dozen soldiers, stockpiling like he's going to war. I stirred my coffee. It is a war. Always has been. You don't get it. He's not just coming for you anymore. 2 cops are dead. That makes it my war too. I leaned back, let the neon buzz fill the silence. So what's your plan, detective? Bring him in with a warrant. Read him his rights while he carves another notch in his jaw. Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. No. My plan is to use you. I chuckled, low and sharp. Finally, some honesty. She leaned closer. You want him. I need him. We go together, tonight. You get your revenge, I get my case closed. Sounds tidy, I said. But tidy's not Russo's style. Then we make it messy, she shot back. We met again at midnight, warehouse row by the river, where the air tasted of rust and river rot. She pulled up in an unmarked sedan, popped the trunk. Inside, body armor, shotguns, enough ammo to start a revolution. You think this is gonna be enough? I asked. She smirked. It's never enough. But it'll do. I strapped up, slid a pistol into my belt. The metal was cold against my skin, familiar, like shaking hands with an old friend. Quinn checked her gear, then nodded toward the warehouse across the lot. That's the nest. He's in there. The building was a husk, windows blown out, graffiti crawling up its bones. Shadows moved inside, Russo's men. The kind who'd kill for a pack of smokes, and die for free. 10 seconds, I muttered. What? Quinn asked. Nothing. We slipped in through a side door, quiet as ghosts. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, music thumping from a busted speaker. Crates stacked high, bottles smashed on the floor. And at the center, Russo, jaw crooked, eyes burning, knife in hand like a priest holding scripture. Johnny Ghost, he crooned, his voice grinding like broken glass. And the lady cop. What a blessing. His men circled, guns raised, teeth bared. Quinn lifted her shotgun, aimed steady. I pulled my pistol, sighting Russo's chest. This ends tonight, Quinn barked. Russo laughed, low and jagged. You think bullets end me?
No.
Bullets just write my scripture. He snapped his fingers. Lights blazed. And there, tied to a chair in the corner, was Vinny. My stomach turned. He was bloodied, eyes swollen, mouth gagged. Still alive, but barely. Russo grinned wider. You left him a gift, Johnny. He showed me. Pathetic little mirror. I decided to give him something better. A front row seat. Vinny moaned through the gag, eyes begging me. For mercy, for help, for something I'd already stripped away. Quinn hissed, we stick to the plan. Drop Russo, clear the room. But I was already moving. The first 10 seconds were fire and thunder. I shot left, dropped one of Russo's men before he could blink. Quinn blasted right, her shotgun booming, another body hitting the floor. Russo charged, knife flashing, roaring like a beast. We scattered, ducked behind crates. Bullets tore through wood, splinters raining. I rolled, fired twice, another man dropped screaming. Quinn reloaded fast, her eyes never leaving Russo. Vinny thrashed in his chair, muffled cries rising with the gunfire. Russo vaulted a crate, landed in front of me. His knife slashed, tearing my jacket. I grabbed his wrist, slammed him into the wall. He laughed in my face, teeth red with blood. You can't kill me, Ghost. You need me. I shoved him back, pistol aimed at his heart. Need you dead. He lunged again, knife arcing, then Quinn's shot rang out. Russo jerked, chest exploding, staggered back. He stared at the hole, touched it with shaking fingers, then looked at me. Ghost, he rasped, blood bubbling his lips. 10 seconds. Then he collapsed. The silence afterward was heavier than the gunfire. Smoke drifted, crates burned, bodies sprawled. Quinn lowered her shotgun, breathing hard. It's done, she said. I holstered my pistol, walked over to Vinny. He whimpered, flinched as I cut his ropes. He crumpled to the floor, clutching my leg like a child. Johnny, thank you, thank you. I shoved him off. Don't thank me. He blinked, confused. What now? I crouched, pulled the mirror shard from my pocket, the same one I'd given him before. I pressed it into his trembling hand. Now you live with this. Every day. Look at yourself. Remember what you are. Tears streamed down his swollen face. Please. I can change. No, I said cold. You can't. I turned, walked away. Quinn watched me, eyes unreadable. You're letting him live? She asked. I lit a cigarette, flame steady in the ruin. Living's worse than dying. Trust me. We stepped out into the night, sirens wailing closer. Quinn slipped her badge back into view. You know I can't cover for you forever. I smirked. Good thing I'm a ghost. She almost smiled. One day, Johnny. One day your 10 seconds will run out. I took a drag, exhaled smoke into the cold. Maybe. But not tonight. And as the sirens closed in, I melted into the shadows, leaving Quinn, the rat, and the corpses behind. Because ghosts don't stay. We haunt. And my haunting had just begun.